Whoa, whoa, whoa. I know what you're thinking. Coach, did you get better looking? No, 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 no. All jokes aside, I'm Cody Merrow, producer extraordinaire, joined by a familiar face, the Duck Ian Parker here for Combat Coach. We're going to go through every fight on this upcoming UFC card. But first, Ian, how are you, my friend?
I was gonna say, Coach looks a little different this week, but yeah, maybe an improvement in the looks. I agree. Goatee not as good, but I gotta give it to you. Look good, man. Now I'm good, bro. I'm excited. We took a little bit of a break, but now we're back at it. UFC on Saturday. Let's go.
Hey, well, I'm just trying to keep up with Coach. He sets a high bar, and we're just trying to follow along, Ian. So let's not waste any more time. I see you're staying warm down there in that Florida cold with that sweatshirt, but we are going to roll through every single fight, as I said. But remember, these are not all picks that you need to take to the pay window. The best picks for this card are all going to be on our premium platform, Coach's Picks. Guys, if you look at the bottom of the screen soon for more info, I will give it all to you. But guys, we're on the clock. We got to get going. Ian, the first fight coming in at featherweight on this UFC on ESPN 18 card. Coming up, O'Day Osborne minus 210 versus Jerome Rivera plus 170. What's your lean here?
I'm leaning Osborne in this fight. Obviously coming off a loss with his UFC debut, he was still a good prospect coming off the Contender Series. Rivera coming off a loss, going up a weight class. I think Osborne is going to be a little bit better everywhere. Look for him to get the win here.
Love it. Rolling right along. Sungwoo Choi versus Yusef Zalal. Sungwoo Choi coming in plus 185. Yusef Zalal on the kickback minus 240. What do you have, Ian?
I think this is a good bounce back fight for Zalal. Even though it's a little short notice, I think he's just a little bit better everywhere. And I look for him to bounce back off that last loss. So give me Zalal on this one.
Woo, we are off to a fire start. I love it. Molly McCann minus 150 versus Laura Procopio. How do you see it?
Yeah, this one's a tough one to really choose. I think the odds are okay here. Molly McCann's got more experience, coming off a loss. I know she had this whole emotional thing with her late father who wanted to see her fight in Vegas the first time she's fighting in Vegas. I do think on a betting standpoint, the over is probably the safer play. This fight turns into a brawl like I think it will. I always lean towards Meatball Molly, so I'm going to go that way.
Such great insight. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you want to come to Coach's Picks for, and especially on Parker's Picks on our platform. Check it out. Coming up next, also in the women's division, Carl Rosa, minus 250 versus Jocelyn Edwards, plus 195. Ian, where you got it?
Yeah, you know what? This is another one that comes down to experience here. I do think Edwards is probably going to get some moments in this fight. I just think Rosa is going to be too much size-wise, strength-wise, speed-wise. Edwards is tough, though. She has definitely showed us something being that underdog last time as well. She came out hot. I just think that Rosa is just going to be too much. And I think she's earned that minus 250 favorite. So I would take Rosa in this one as well.
Well, coming up on a string of heavy favorites here, Devontae Smith, minus 310 versus Justin James at a plus 250 pullback. How do you see it going?
James is tough. That first fight he came to the UFC as big underdog, won by knockout. And that last fight, he took a couple of nasty leg kicks to the body. We kind of now got a feel of how he fights. Smith came to the UFC, big prospect. Then he loses to Conor Worthy. He's out for a year. I think this is a really good bounce back fight for him stylistically. He'll be able to keep it on the feet. As long as he doesn't brawl, he'll be okay. He can use his speed. He'll be the more technical striker. I like Devontae Smith to get the win here.
And a technical analysis there from Ian Parker. Let's keep it going. Timur Valiev, minus 370 versus Martin Day, plus 295.
Yeah, this one, Valiev is going to get the win here. I think he's going to be able to grind it out for 3 rounds. Martin Day, in his last fight, a lot of people had him win, and he got submitted, and he lost the fight. He really shouldn't have lost. He just didn't play it smart. And this is not going to get any easier. I know guys want to take opportunities when they can get them. They want to get back in the cage. I think this is not a good decision for him on a bounce back. Valiev is going to get the win here. Even at minus 370, I think there might be a little bit of value. Kind of crazy.
Well, and I might alienate our audience with this next one, but Slow Mike Rodriguez coming in from the New England Cartel. Minus 235 versus Danilo Marquez, plus 195. Where are we going?
Man, it depends on which Mike Rodriguez really shows up here. If the confident one who is not hesitant shows up, then he should get the win here. I know the whole Ed Herman situation is probably going through his mind a little bit. I just think that this is the time now where he's had to learn from past experiences, fights he should have won where he didn't, and then ones where he kind of did win and still didn't. And then he comes out and then he gets a really good win. So I think for Mike Rodriguez, he's got a good coaching. He's got a good team behind him. He should get the win here. I don't love that he's minus 235 with the pass with between the controversy and fight, again, big heavy favorite and then not winning and not showing up. But this is a good fight to get him started and get him back in the win column. So it's okay to go Mike Rodriguez here.
And I was gonna say he's priced as if he won that last fight, and so coming into that -235, you're saying a couple of these things are important to look at when you're looking at prices. You want to get the good value. You don't necessarily always want to just be taking winners in MMA. -235 that could skyrocket up to -250 by fight time. Not much value there. I love that, Ian. Coming up here, a couple of, I would say they're legends of the game. Michael Johnson -210 versus Clay Guida +170. Clay Guida maybe a little bit more of a legend because of longevity. Michael Johnson more of a legend just because of how frequently he seems to fight. Where do you see this fight going?
Ah, man. So love Clay Guida. Been a fan of his forever. And we know exactly what we're going to get out of him. He's going to come forward like a jackrabbit. His pace is going to be insane. What we're seeing is he's throwing hands a lot better. His striking's come a long way. The only issue he's going to run into here, he's running into a guy, Michael Johnson, who's a phenomenal wrestler, great takedown defense. And Michael Johnson's striking is probably one of the more underrated guys in the division. However, he's had some situations where he's been winning fights, and then unfortunately he blows it. Justin Gaethje fight, he was absolutely dominating. Gas tank ran out against Thiago Moises. Same thing. First round did a great job defending all the submission attempts, and then the second round, Moises comes out, gets that quick ankle lock, and Johnson's done. Johnson will be the better striker here. If he can keep this fight standing, he should win this fight. And if he can keep his gas tank okay, and it's a 3-round fight, I think Johnson is really priced correctly, and I think he gets the win here. And as I said on elsewhere, I think Michael Johnson's a guy with that record that doesn't justify how good he actually is. I think this is a good match for him.
Great. I love it. Now, is that one where, as you kind of alluded to, where the gas tank's going to play into it? Do you see a lot more value at Michael Johnson maybe by a decision, or how do you see that?
I think for Michael Johnson, man, it's a tough one here, right? Because the way he fights, he's either going to jab you to death or he puts too much volume out too early and then gasses out. And someone like Clay Guida can steal a round by getting on top. I think Johnson is a good guy to throw in a parlay at -210. I don't really love the idea of actually choosing him within a prop only because Guida has been dropped before. And we've seen Johnson drop a few people. He dropped Khabib Nurmagomedov when they fought. He's got a really good left hand. That's going to be a huge factor here. Guida's not great against southpaws. That's another thing too. And especially when he throws an overhand right, left hand comes down. And when that cross comes from a southpaw over the overhand right from an orthodox fighter, it's wide open. And Johnson's going to have the speed factor with the hands as well.
I love it. And that's why you come here to Combat Coach. I mean, we're trying to give you guys all the juice so that you don't have to do all the squeezing. So another fight that I love on this card, personally, I know nobody comes here for my opinions, but I love a pick'em fight in MMA. I think every MMA fight can be a pick'em fight depending on how you show up that day. Carlos Diego Ferreira, -115 versus Beneil Dariush, -115. Pick'em fight. How do you see it?
It's a tough fight, man. These are one of those fights I would kind of sit back and just want to watch. Right now we're looking at two guys who have changed in the way from where they started, right? Beneil Dariush started off more of a grappler, not much of a striker. Now he's finishing fights with spinning back fists, getting really crazy. And when you have a guy as good at grappling as him and he gets a little too comfortable striking, sometimes the gas tank wears out and they kind of forget about them there. And I think Dariush might run into a problem here with Ferreira, however you pronounce Carlos's name. I think Carlos is going to throw more volume. I think he does that. Dariush throws more power. Carlos throws more volume. I think Carlos has the better takedown game. I think Carlos will probably play into his strengths a little bit more than Dariush. Dariush is getting comfortable with these knockouts. This is not going to be a spinning back fist type of end. I actually think I will go the distance. I don't think either guy is going to finish the other. If I had to pick between the two, I don't even know if I can. I think I'd go Carlos here. I just think that his cardio overall will be better. As we saw in the Dariush fight versus Drakkar Close, that was really rock'em sock'em robots, right? And even in the last fight when Dariush fought Holtzman was landing. So we know Dariush has a good chin. However, Holtzman's not a guy that's going to push the pace and press. Well, we saw with Carlos his last couple fights, he's going to push the pace. That fight against Anthony Pettis, my God, did he push the pace. And when he got on top of you, he didn't stop. He's going to go for a lot of submission attempts. And Dariush just has not fought someone like this in a while. So between the two, I would lean Carlos, but I actually think this fight's going to go the distance.
Well, and coming up next, I hate to do this, but we're going to talk about the second best looking Cody that's going to be appearing on this show. Cody Stamann -490. Huge favorite against Askar +365. That is not a typo for everyone out there in the comments.
Askar's pretty tough. And I think he's a decently well-rounded fighter. I just think he's running into a stud in Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann fought against Brian Kelleher, fought really well. His last fight against Jimmy Rivera, I just think that he was not expecting Rivera to return to form, throwing those leg kicks, throwing that output and be able to defend the takedown, and having an equal, if not better, gas tank than someone like Cody Stamann. I just think Cody Stamann is going to be always in that top 7, top 8. I think in this fight, he'll be able to do kind of whatever he wants. He's got good striking and he knows when to use his jab to get that takedown. He does put on a good pace and he pressures well. When Askar fights off his back foot, he's at his worst. So I like Cody Stamann here. Minus 490 is pretty expensive. So I would try to rope him into a parlay with 2 other favorites to try to get some value out of it.
Well, and we're going to bring down the odds here for this next one. Alexander Pantoja, minus 120 versus Manel Kape, minus 110. We had a lot of conversation about Manel Kape here in our pre-show. Tell the people what we were talking about, Ian.
Yeah, so Manel Kape was actually, him and Pantoja were supposed to fight, I think, back in November. It got canceled, and then Kape weighed in as the backup to the Moreno. Figure we're in a championship fight. People probably aren't going to recognize the name. Fighting international in Japan, dude's a beast. Good everywhere, fast. Yep. He's one of the few guys like Figueroa who's got true knockout power in this division. And I actually like him here. I wish he was getting better odds as an underdog, thinking that people wouldn't know him. But I think Vegas has this right only because Pantoja has been in the UFC. He's fought top-level competition in the UFC. But here's where Pantoja is going to run into a problem. Number one, his gas tank is going to go down probably middle of the second. Kape doesn't get tired, especially in a 3-round fight. Pantoja also, who is probably going to have the advantage in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, doesn't really use it anymore. He uses it to transition more defensively than he does offensively, which I think is going to be a big problem against Manel Kape. On top of that, he's been getting really comfortable striking and throwing wild. If you want to throw wild against Kape, you might as well take NyQuil and go to sleep early because Kape has that ability to do it, and he's got faster hands. He'll be the more technical striker. And I think due to that, I really like Manel Kape here, and I'm loving these odds at the moment.
I'm getting some Dayquil with that energy, Ian. I'm loving it. Now, in this next fight, we're either going to see a passing of the torch or a title shot hope get torched. Corey Sandhagen minus 415 versus Frankie Edgar plus 315. Ian, give me the answer on this one.
Oof, was that a nice little pun towards Frankie right there?
Oh, you know it.
Listen, I give credit to Frankie Edgar. He doesn't say no to a fight. However, I just don't think this is the right fight for him at this point in his career. I'd like to see him maybe fight someone, I hate to say more like a Dominic Cruz or someone with a big name that's a little bit more in his age range, his legacy type of fight. He's fighting someone where this is really a good name for Corey to have on the resume. Corey, when he fought Aljamain Sterling, was the favorite. Aljamain executed perfectly, got it done fast. We were all shorted as fans, but for Aljo, that was fantastic. Didn't really get to see where Corey really was, though, right? Sometimes you just don't understand. And then you get in a situation where Corey then goes and fights Marlon Moraes, and you're like, wow, this is a really tough bounce back fight. You're talking about a guy in Moraes who is also excellent everywhere. Where is Corey going to take this? We've seen Corey be very comfortable getting himself in pretty weird positions. If you go back to the Rafael Sunsao fight, and against a guy in the Sunsao who's phenomenal jiu-jitsu, you're thinking to yourself, man, you don't want this guy on your back. You don't want this. And Corey just did whatever he wanted for 3 rounds. And I kind of think that's going to be the difference here. He's going to have the range for miles, his output, his speed, his angles. It's not too often guys are faster than Frankie. And I think Corey's hand speed is going to be there. He's going to have the power. Unless Frankie can get Corey on his back and he can hold him there for literally 3 rounds, which I don't see happening. I think Corey Sandhagen gets this done pretty easily. I think he'll beat Frankie's not an easy guy to finish. I think Corey wins by decision. And I think then we see Corey move on to a title shot and get the winner of Aljo and Piotr Jan.
So our mutual friend Bilal Muhammad went on Twitter and he said he wished that this fight was 5 rounds. Now, I think we can both agree that we'd love 2 extra rounds of this fight, but from a betting standpoint, if the fight was 5 rounds, would that change your analysis of how this goes?
Absolutely not. Corey Sandhagen, listen, I know what he's saying. It's giving Frankie more of a chance because we know Frankie sometimes is able to, withstand the storm in rounds 1 and 2, and his cardio and energy goes crazy in 3, 4, and 5. I totally get that. In the Pedro Munoz fight, that's what he's referencing, right? Over 5 rounds, Frankie kind of adjusted, got used to the leg kicks, he worked his jab, bounced in and out. Bouncing in and out, though, on a guy as rangy as Corey Sandhagen isn't going to work, and it's not going to happen. So, if it was 5 rounds, I'd love to see it because, again, just these 2 guys, the way they fight, it's a fun fight to watch. Corey Sandhagen, though, I really think gets the job done here. I would, even if it was 5 rounds. Corey's not known for not having a good gas tank, so I don't see that being a problem for him.
Well, I gotta agree with you there. And hey, if I could trade the last round off of that fight or the last round off of this fight and add it onto that fight, I totally would because I don't see that this fight is going to go to a 5 round decision. Alistair Overeem plus 145 in the main event versus Alexander Volkov minus 175. Ian, based on that look, I think maybe you disagree with my comment. The floor is yours, my friend.
It's not so much that I disagree with you. When it's heavyweights, you always are going to assume it's not going to go the distance. I mean, with Volkov and Curtis Blades and went there, Overeem and Rosenstrike, pretty much went the distance minus the last 2 seconds. And Overeem seems to be finishing guys. I think in the Augusto Sakai fight was round 3 or round 4 in that range. And even with Volkov, he hasn't really gotten a finish in God knows how long. And then he finishes Walt Harris kind of early. So for me, it really depends. I think both guys in the first round are going to be very hesitant to throw because they both have the knockout power to do it. I also think Alistair Overeem between the two knows who they are, where they're currently at in their career better than the other. When you got that mindset that you've been around the game, he's fought everybody. And that's not saying that Volkov is a rookie or that's green. When you have a mindset, this is my last ride, and I'm trying to get to the title and I know how to preserve health and not take the damage. To me, that sounds like Overeem is going to go back to the wrestling game, which is what's won those last few fights, controlled the last few fights. Against Sakai, which everyone thought Overeem should have the striking advantage, he didn't. Sakai was outboxing him. So what did Overeem do? He was using clinch and then getting the takedown, getting on top. And Sakai was getting up, but Overeem didn't quit. And eventually he smothered him, passed into half, and then landed those elbows. Overeem will have the better wrestling game between the two. We've seen that Volkov is not difficult to take down. Now, again, Overeem is not as good as wrestler as Curtis Blades, but Overeem's got a pretty good double leg takedown. He knows how to get guys down off of sweeps from the clinch, and he's been doing this for a long, long time. I think Overeem knows if he gets in a straight boxing match, he's leaving that chin open to get dropped, and we've seen Overeem get dropped a lot. I think Alistair Overeem, and not to take anything away from Volkov here, I don't think he should be a minus 175. I think the value here is with Alistair Overeem. I think in his last fight, he weathered the storm. He took some shots from Sakai, who I think is more powerful than Volkov. And I think we are just a smarter fighter in Overeem. He's taking the angles. He's moving around a lot. He's not standing in front of people willing to trade and be the demolition man. He's being the smarter man now. And I do think Volkov is going to probably use that jab to establish it in rounds 1 and 2 until Overeem gets him on his back. And depending on how much damage Overeem can inflict, I do like Alistair Overeem at plus 145. I really do. I think that one last ride means something to him. I think getting it finished in that last fight the way he wanted to do it and not taking too much damage. And Volkov beating Walt Harris doesn't really make me feel like, I don't think Walt Harris and Overeem are in the same world, even though Harris dropped Overeem. But then again, experience. Overeem came back and beat him. So give me the underdog here, and Alistair Overeem at plus 145. I dig it.
Love it. Love it. As we said, we're trying to give you those value plays. We're trying to make people money here. We're not just trying to give out favorites on this show. Guys, go to Coach's Picks for Parker's Bets. You can find us at the Coach Picks on all the social platforms. You got to go there, sign up for our platform. For free, you can get the newsletter. There's free plays going out all the time. For Cody Merrow, Ian Parker, and on behalf of the coach and Coach Picks, that's going to do it for us. Rewind if you want all these picks because I'm not going through them again. That's going to do it. Thank you. Good night.